I didn't come looking for trouble. I just wanted to know what shifted under my feet. The way they sat, the way the air turned heavy. I knew something had sparked. I didn't start it. I didn't stop it. I just had to decide what part I'd play in the mess. Her hand brushed his wrist as she passed him a glass of wine. And that moment hung, sharp and electric, like a blade catching light. Quick, subtle, but not unseen. He froze for a heartbeat, then looked away, like it never happened. But it did. I saw her smile after, soft, easy, like nothing mattered. But that smile lingered, carrying a promise too dangerous to name. Dinner was winding down in a cramped New Orleans apartment, the kind where the walls hum with old jazz and the air smells of bourbon and regret. Their laughter came easier now, too in sync, too warm. She leaned forward when she spoke, and he mirrored her. Shoulders turned, eyes locked on her face. Nothing overt, just small shifts in rhythm that felt too familiar, like a song you know before it plays. She was my closest friend, Lily. The one who knew my scars before I named them. The one who'd seen versions of me I'd forgotten. But this version, sitting across from her, watching her trade glances with my husband, Frank, felt like a stranger. They weren't blatant. Not Lily. Not Frank. But something crackled between them. Something that wasn't there when we sat down. A current, hot and forbidden, pulling them closer. I didn't know if it made me angry or curious. She passed him the bread basket, their fingers brushing, lingering a second too long. Neither moved. I lifted my glass, took a slow sip, set it down with care. "She's staying the night," I said. Not a question. Not needing to be. Frank glanced up, nodded once. Lily smiled, not surprised, like she'd been waiting for me to say it, her eyes gleaming with something unspoken, daring me to see it. For the first time that night, everything settled. But it wasn't peace, it was the calm before a storm. They moved to the kitchen to clean up, plates stacking, water running, their movements too smooth, too practiced. I stayed at the table, listening to their voices bounce, her laugh sparking first, then his, low and unguarded, a sound I hadn't heard from him in too long. I stood, slow, and drifted to the doorway. They stood at the sink, side by side, moving around each other without hesitation, like dancers who knew the steps by heart. Lily dried glasses. Frank handed them over, one by one. Nothing strange, but the air between them was warmer, closer, thick with something that could burn. She stepped around him, close enough to share his space, not touching but near enough to feel it. Her hand reached for his collar, adjusting it, brushing away some invisible thread. Quick, casual, but it said too much. He turned his head, met her eyes. Something flickered in his face, not guilt, not resistance, just a pause, like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, wondering if he'd jump. I spoke before they could. "You two look good together." Lily turned to me, her expression unreadable at first, but not startled, like she'd sensed this moment coming. "You sure?" she asked, her voice careful, searching. I stepped into the kitchen, picked up Frank's glass from the counter, held it a moment, then took a sip. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "No more needed saying." She shifted, closing the gap between them just enough to feel natural. Frank looked at me, silent, his eyes steady. I met his gaze, unflinching. Her hand found his, and this time, he didn't pull away, their fingers locking in a quiet betrayal that felt like a punch to my gut. We moved to the living room. No words. The air heavier now. The light hadn't changed. The cushions were the same, but something in the room had shifted, like a shadow moving before the light does. They took the couch. I sank into an armchair. Not far, but apart. I wasn't pulling away. I just needed space to breathe it in. Lily turned to Frank, one leg tucked under her, body angled toward him, like she was waiting for the right moment to settle. He sat still, hands on his knees, eyes down but not avoiding. Just calm. Her hand reached for his arm, simple. No drama, just a quiet touch. He didn't move. They spoke, but the words didn't carry. I watched their faces instead, the way her mouth softened, the way his shoulders eased when she lingered near. Then she leaned closer. I couldn't see everything. I didn't need to. What I saw was how they moved together, deliberate, like two people drowning in the same current. His hand rose, slow, not bold, just enough to touch her somewhere halfway. I stayed still, not because I didn't know what was happening, but because I'd chosen not to stop it. She adjusted, closing the distance between them, the space between them shrinking to nothing, charged with want. It wasn't sudden, wasn't rushed. It unfolded, step by quiet step, without anyone needing to say a word. His hand slid along her hip, open, unsure but firm. She met it with calm, her body yielding just enough to make it real. I studied their movements, the way everything slowed but never stopped, the air so thick it pressed against my skin. The silence made my breath slow too. This wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice I'd made, and I wasn't undoing it. The room went quiet, not tense, just still, like everyone was waiting but no one wanted to speak first. She sat close to him, her hand resting lightly on his. They didn't move much, just small shifts, but the space between them had vanished. Then she turned, not sudden, just enough to see me, her eyes catching mine like a hook, pulling me into their orbit, like she remembered I hadn't left. Her expression wasn't uncertain, it was steady, calm, the kind that said more than words. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. Her fingers reached toward me, slow, open, stopping just short of touch, and I moved, not from discomfort, not from pressure, but because I chose to. I stepped closer, careful not to break the silence. She turned fully to me, her hand brushing mine. Light, easy. Frank watched us both, his gaze unwavering, locked on me, present. I sat beside them, close enough for our shoulders to touch. The silence didn't swallow us, it floated, soft and heavy, wrapping us in its weight. We sat like that, the three of us, present, aware, not moving, not needing more. Her hand stayed in mine. His rested nearby, steady, relaxed. I leaned forward, not toward either, but into the silence between us, where desire and trust tangled, sharp and unbreakable. Nothing felt uncertain. It just was. She moved first, a slight turn, a pause, her hand settled on mine, not asking, not leading, just holding. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. My other hand reached for Frank. He took it without hesitation, held it firm, not tight, not urgent, just enough to say he was there. We stayed like that, the three of us, connected, still, bound by a choice none of us could name but all of us felt. The silence didn't overwhelm. It gave us room. I closed my eyes. Not from emotion, not from being overwhelmed, but because in that stillness, there was nothing left to reach for, nothing to explain, just a rare, steady calm. No one filled the silence. No one tried to define it. We let it be unspoken, uncomplicated. Enough. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lost. I was part of it. That was all. Be honest. If you were him, faced with a choice, trusted and pulled into something you didn't see coming, would you stay or walk away? Drop it in the comments. I read them all. If this story hit you, like it, subscribe, turn on notifications. Don't miss what's next. Thanks for being here.